Greetings everyone, Neverlin here with the Phearon, and we have a battle report for you today. We're excited to be trying out the new 6th edition rules, and we have a big 2,500 point game for you. It'll be my Blood Scorpions that are taking on the Phearon's Necrons. The battle is taking place on the jungle moon of Blanc. Our mission is the Emperor's Will, meaning that there are two objectives. The Phearon has placed his up on the rock in the corner, while mine is right behind the dense jungle near the center of the board. We have rolled a Vanguard strike for deployment. The Phearon won the roll to deploy first, and he chose to do so. As you can see, he has lined up his forces along the edge of his deployment zone, starting with the Nightbringer up at the top, and then his Wraiths. A pair of Immortal units are on either side of the Monolith up there in the front. On the back line, there's a unit of warriors on top of his objective, and the Doomsday Ark is ready to bring the doom right next to them. The Phearon has been kind enough to allow me to proxy a few units so I can try out the new ally rules. I've chosen to try out some Grey Wolves, and have selected a Rune Priest leading two 10-man squads of Grey Hunters. I'll be referring to them as my tactical squads. For my deployment, I've placed my 3 Devastator squads right beyond the reach of his guns. My tactical squads are broken down into 2 combat squads, with halves protecting the objective and the other half embarked in the rhinos. My Tech Marine is also hanging out right next to the objective. The real punch of my army is in reserve. I have Dante with a unit of Sanguine Guard, a Priest, and a Rune Priest jumping into combat. I also have a Storm Raven loaded up with Lamartes, the Death Company, and a Death Company Dreadnought. The Phearon has his share of nastiness in reserve as well. He'll be waiting on a Doom Scythe and also a Night Scythe loaded up with his Lich Guard. I think this match is going to be a true test of endurance, him with his We Will Be Back rolls and me with my Feel No Pain. Let's get ready for the first turn. Necron turn 1. Well, the Phearon began swooping his Wraiths and Nightbringer down the center to threaten my objective. He then inched his Monolith, followed by his unit of Immortals, down towards the swamp. He concentrated most of his firepower on the exposed Rhino and was able to glance it to death, while a shot from the Doomsday Cannon missed its mark on the other Rhino. The Wraiths came up with a big 6 on their run roll, giving those Grey Hunters a lot to think about next round. Well, I had little choice but to see how much firepower I could bring to bear on those Wraiths, and so to that end, the Rhino swung around the jungle and dropped off the Grey Hunters, while the other party of Grey Hunters swept around the south, round the wrecked Rhino. After maneuvering, every single one of my models had a beat on these Wraiths, and we fired everything. Las cannons, plasma cannons, rapid fire bolters, melta-guns, plasma guns, everything, and after all was said and done, we only took out 2 Wraiths. It was a little bit disappointing, but that's Warhammer for you.
Space Marines attack!
Necron turn 2. Well, it seems the Warhammer gods like to spread the bad luck around because none of the Phearon's reserves came in. In his movement phase, the Wraiths crept up on the Grey Hunters ready to charge, while in the shooting phase, the combined firepower of the Immortals and the Monolith were able to glance the other Rhino into dust. The Doomsday Cannon hit a squad of Grey Hunters, killing 3 of them, and the Particle Whip wiped out another 3 Marines with a lucky scatter. The Wraiths waded into hand-to-hand combat with the Grey Hunters, taking down 2 and winning the combat with no wounds to themselves. The Hunters held strong, though, and looked to the skies for reinforcements. Blood Scorpion turn. Well, the cavalry arrived in the form of Dante and the Storm Raven. The Raven moved onto the board in hover mode to drop off the Death Company and the Death Company Dreadnought, ready for an assault. Dante and his Sanguine Guard precisely drop right behind Necron enemy lines, right next to the Doom Cannon. In the rest of the movement phase, the Graze Hunters north of the jungle retreated out of line of sight towards the objective. In the shooting phase, the Storm Raven opened up with an impressive salvo, destroying a whole squad of Immortals next to the Monolith. The Devastators were less impressive, trying to do some long shots on the Monolith and Nightbringer, but were able to at least eke out a single wound on the Nightbringer. Dante and the Guard fired their Infernal Pistols at the Doomsday Ark, scoring 2 hits, but even with the +3 to the damage rolls, could only manage an immobilized result and a destroy cannon result.
Marines attack!
Lamartes led a valiant assault into the Wraiths, scoring a vicious 19 wounds and destroying all but one of the Wraiths. The Death Company Dread failed an 8-inch charge and could only look angrily at the Nightbringer. On to turn 3. Top of the third, well, the Necron reserves came swooping in. The Doom Scythe swept across the board to take on the Devastators, while the Night Scythe delivered its package of Lich Guard and the Destroyer Lord to the center of the board. The Warriors, on the other hand, didn't like their chances against Dante near the objective and decided to beam out via the Monolith, redeploying next to the Lich Guard. In the shooting phase, the Doom Scythe shot the Death Ray at the Devastators, killing all of them, except the Sergeant and the last cannon in one of the squads. The Immortals, the Monolith, and the side guns on the Doomsday Barge concentrated all of their firepower on the Sanguine Guard, but were only able to take down 2. The Night Scythe fired some Tesla nonsense at the Dread, scoring a pair of glancing hits which are going to hurt in the future. In the assault phase, the Nightbringer charged the Dread, hoping for the easy kill, but could not land a single hit, while the Dread scored a wound on the Nightbringer. The Death Company finished off the Wraiths in good measure and set their sights on the Warriors. Bottom of the third, the Storm Raven zoomed toward the Doom Scythe, while the Sanguine Guard jumped out into position to assault the Immortals. On the other end of the board, the Death Company prepared to assault the Warriors, while the remaining members of the Grey Hunters consolidated on the objective. In the shooting phase, the Storm Raven made quick work of the Doom Scythe with a barrage of blood missiles. The Devastators took some shots at the Monolith but failed to pen. In the assault phase, Dante led a brutal charge against the Immortals, wiping them out completely. While in the center, Lamartes and his Death Company charged the Warriors. At that time, the Phearon issued a challenge to Lamartes, who thought about it for a moment, then coolly strode to the back of his rank, saying, "I think my boys have this," and refused the challenge. The Death Company made good on Lamartes' promise and wiped out the Warriors with 14 power weapon wounds. The Nightbringer and the Dreadnought continue to flail away at each other into a stalemate. Let's see what the next turn brings. Fourth turn. Well, the Phearon opted to zoom the Night Scythe off the board in hopes of getting a better angle of attack on the Storm Raven next round, while the Lich Guard drew their blades and prepared to shut down the Blood Scorpion rampage. With a grin, the Phearon positioned his Monolith perfectly to hit the Death Guard in the shooting phase with an Eternity Gate, but sadly, he rolled the 1, which meant the gate failed to open. He fired off a Particle Whip on the Sanguine Guard, killing another one, bringing the squad down to 2 Guard, Dante, and the 2 Priests. The Phearon assaulted the Death Company with the Lich Guard and the Destroyer Lord. He issued a challenge with the regular Overlord, which Lamartes decided to accept this time. Again, however, the challenge didn't work out so well for the Necron. as Lamartes passed the Mind Shackle Scarab test and did 3 wounds to the Lord, destroying it. The Lich Guard's dispersion shield saved them from the Death Company, and they killed the rest of them in return, leaving Lamartes surrounded in a sea of steel. The Nightbringer and the Dreadnought continued their epic battle, with the Nightbringer taking 1 more wound. Blood Scorpion turn. Well, the Storm Ravens soared over the jungle to offer some air support in the center as Dante and the Guard positioned themselves to assault the Tomb Spider this turn. On the shooting phase, not much there. The Devastators could not do anything against the Monolith, while the Storm Raven failed to put the Doomsday Arc out of its misery. The assault phase was pretty quiet as well. Dante and the Guard wiped out the Tomb Spider as predicted, and the Necron Overlord came back with the reanimation protocols and issued another challenge to Lamartes. Lamartes again accepted, passed the Mind Shackles test, and knocked the Overlord down again.
For the glory of the Imperium, charge!
Turn 5. Well, the Night Seath angled in on the Storm Raven and blew it out of the sky with a little help from the Monolith. In the assault phase, the Lich Guard finally took down Lamartes, and the Nightbringer limped away from the Death Company, victorious but down to a single wound. On the Blood Scorpion side, Dante circled around to the other objective in hopes of securing both. The Devastators tried to take out the Night Sheath, but missed completely. And at this point, the score is certainly in the Blood Scorpion's favor as I hold both objectives, but the game continues to turn 6. Necron turn 6. The Night Sheath zooms towards the Guard and takes a couple of shots, doing a couple of wounds. Dante's able to take the brunt of that in order to save his Sanguine Guard. Well, the Phearon moves his Nightbringer in towards the objective in an attempt to contest it with a charge. And while the Lich Guard seem to be out of the fight at this point, they try to move further down south into my deployment zone in hopes of getting that victory point. The Destroyer Lord also breaks away from the Lich Guard and hopes the game will last another turn and he can be effective up there by the objective. The Monolith scores a direct hit on the Guard, on my Sanguine Guard that is, and lashes out with all of its gauze arcs, taking down the 2 remaining Sanguine Guard, and with it my hopes of controlling that objective. The assault phase is pretty quick as the Nightbringer is able to make an 8-inch charge on my Technogreen, which I foolishly put a little bit too close. He obviously takes it out and is ready to contest that objective. Blood Scorpion turn. Well, Dante and his priests move out of line of sight of the Monolith in hopes of staying alive in case this does go to 7 turns. The Devastators finally come to life themselves and take down both the Nightbringer and the Destroyer Lord, but as luck would have it, the Lord not only comes back to life, but another turn is rolled, so off we are to the 7th. Final turn. Well, the Phearon makes a last-ditch effort to contest the objective by assaulting the Hunters. His Night Scythe does a U-turn and tries to finish off Dante, but is unsuccessful. His Destroyer Lord ends up wiping out all of the Hunters in that assault and stands poised to actually win this game from the jaws of defeat if he can just withstand the upcoming Devastator salvo. Well, there's only one thing left to do in the Blood Scorpion's turn, and that's basically to see if we can take out that Necron Lord. The Devastators do their part to destroy it, and the roll comes in, and he fails. This leaves the game in a draw as neither one of us control any objectives. He got 1 victory point for First Blood. I got 1 victory point for killing his Lord at the end, and we both get a victory point for having units in each other's deployment zones for a 2-2. This was a great game. I'm really enjoying the new rules. I think it added a lot and made it more cinematic for me. And you always got to love a game that comes down to the last roll of the dice. I mean, it really was anyone's game for the last 3 turns. Really enjoyed it. My hat's off to the Phearon. We'll see you in the next one.
It's